You know whose birthday it is today?
Who?
Robert Redford.
Absolutely.
Robert Redford, one of the greatest actors of our time. One of my favorite sports movies of all time, also Natural. It is his birthday today. It's also Roberto Clemente's birthday. I did not know that they shared a birthday. How about that?
I have a laundry list of great birthdays today.
Oh, do you really? Who else you got?
Well, we usually do that at about 2:50. We hold that off. We close out the show and movies. So
I just saw.
Yeah, and it's not Robert Redford. It is Charles Robert Redford. That
sounds like someone before my time.
You mean Chucky Robb? You know old Chucky Robb?
Wait a minute. You don't know who Robert Redford is? Tone?
Hey, listen. I know too many Roberts. The only Robert I acknowledge is Robert Ellis.
Oh my goodness.
Old Ellis Island.
I acknowledge.
Old Ellis Island at TU.
Oh my goodness. He's so young, Mark.
Look, here's the deal. Here's where I think people, because I got this a lot too, like people would reference someone to me. And first off, I'm a Frank Sinatra fan, okay? That was well before my time. Yeah. Johnny Carson retired when I was 10 years old, okay? I still know Johnny Carson and could like rattle off some of his bits, right? Like,
I'm a Curtis Mayfield fan, right? Curtis Mayfield before my time. You know, I'm a Rick James fan, you know, before my time. You know, I'm the Fantastic Voyage. You know what I mean? Like you know, this.
How do you know these things and not know some of the greatest actors in history? How do you not know that?
Zapp and Roger. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm pretty solid. You know, with my music history. Okay. I'm pretty good with actors, but that guy got by me.
Okay, fair enough.
How are you fans of all those great musicians and don't know who Robert Redford is, one of the greatest actors ever? How do you not know that?
Hey, listen, let's leave it at that, D-Gun. I don't want to disrespect anybody. I don't want to disrespect anybody. Let's just call a spade, okay?
Yeah, I saw Robert. That movie, The Natural, is just one of those movies that I have to watch whenever it's on. It's like Shawshank Redemption, The Natural, Godfather. Those are movies that if it's on, I just got to watch it. It's a totally different thing, but like the movie Major League, I got to get at least like 3 Harry Doyle lines in before I move on and change the channel, like one of those deals. But Robert Redford, Natural, happy birthday to Robert Redford. I'm sure we'll get more into those a little bit later in the show. Couple of things before we get to stock up and stock down. I do want to go with one quote. I don't know if you guys saw this. Tim McManus alluded to it during his interview, but did you guys catch any of Nolan Smith after the game yesterday in his locker?
No, I didn't. No. Fill me in, Farzan.
I'm not afraid to say it. I love this guy. I know we just met, but I love this guy. This guy's incredible, okay? Mature beyond his years. I bet you he knows who Robert Redford is. But anyway,
hey, look,
I like what you did there.
Look. John Dickerson even said Robert Redford was in one of the Avengers movies. Now, I know you've seen all the Avengers movies.
Yeah, I have. He must have been an extra or something. I don't know.
Oh, my goodness.
I told you, let it die. Let it die. I don't want to get this. Let it die.
Look, this guy. I cannot sit down and eat at a table with Rob Ellis. I cannot go to movies with Tone. Can't talk movies with Tone. Can't do it.
Oh, I love movies, man. I'm a movie guy, but Robert Redford, give me something else he was in. Try to refresh my memory.
Sting? You never saw The Sting?
No, I haven't seen that movie.
You have seen it?
I haven't.
He has not. He has not seen the movie. Sting.
Oh my goodness! Are you kidding me? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Now you guys got me looking at this man's catalog like I care. Let me look.
Oh my goodness!
Let me look at this man's catalog now. All of a sudden.
Yeah. Oh, he was in a movie with Brad Pitt. What the heck was the name of the movie with him and Brad Pitt?
No, he was doing a narration. It's called.
No. You're thinking River Runs Through It.
I love that movie. Great movie.
Phenomenal movie. But no, he was in a movie, Spy Games. I want to say was the name of the movie where Robert Redford played like
Spy Game. Yeah, he paid Tony Scott or something like that. He played.
Okay.
No, sorry, Tony Scott was the director. I apologize. Tony Scott was the director.
Okay.
He played.
Yeah, that was a good movie. Operation Dinner Out. Spy Games, really good movie. I think that was the Spy Games. Yeah, you have it in front of you, Tone.
Okay, yeah. I'm looking. Okay, he was in Winter Soldier. He played Alexander Pierce. Okay, all right. He played one politician. Like, come on, man. Like, and listen, Listen, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all politicians, they're expendable. Come on, man.
That's what he was. I was trying to think of who he was in that. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, Robert Redford, happy birthday, Roberto Clemente. We'll get to some other ones a little bit later in the show. But I have to mention this. So Nolan Smith's at his locker, and let's talk about the injury first. Okay, let's get this out of the way. He did say that his shoulder is like his baby. Sometimes the baby is all right. Sometimes the baby is not all right. But he then said that it's not a, what did he say? It's not a nagging injury. It's not a lingering injury, that he's good to go. He didn't sound like he was good to go, but he said,
it tells me that's kind of a shoulder that pops in and out of place. Like, you have dislocations and fingers, I've seen it happen all the time. They'll pop in and out of place. You pop them right back in, you keep going. Shoulder, sometimes popping in and out, you keep going. I hope it's not one of those things.
Yeah, he did say he was taken out just for precautionary reasons. He just needs the shoulder to get loose. Said the shoulder's like his baby. It was a little stinger. Gunnar, you pointed that out after the game as well. Yep. And then he said this. Tone, do we have this? The comment he made after the game. Do we have this tweet? We put it out. This is fantastic. Listen to this. He's just mad at himself because he's got to make plays. He's got to finish. That's why they brought him in here. They brought me in here to finish plays, not get close, to almost do it, but they brought me in here to finish and make plays, and that's what I'm here to do. Is that not the mentality that every Philadelphia sports fan wants from the defensive player? Is that not the mentality you want from an edge rusher? Is that not the mentality you want for a guy that's going to be going after quarterbacks in situations that aren't blitzing? But hey, look, it's not a hurry. It's not a hit. It's a sack. He actually wants to finish the play. Gunnar, this guy speaks to the heart of Eagles fans.
That's what I'm talking about, man. You're a hungry dog. He's going after that bone every chance he gets. That's what I like to hear. That's why they brought him here. And I love his mentality. He's a little on the smaller side, but man, can he make it up with speed? You see where he was shedding blockers and chasing down people in open space? Man, I love his speed. Love it. Yeah, the way he can dip up under these bigger tackles, man, with that quick move of his. Oh man, I love everything about this game.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had so many moments in this preseason where, he's come so close, and then he ends up influencing the play, and someone else may get the sack or get the tackle for loss. So he's definitely having an impact on the game. That's really all you can ask for from a rookie, right? Drafted first round, I think 30th overall. And just a guy with that kind of mentality, he fits right in. A lot of people already comparing him to the likes of Brandon Graham in terms of just his approach and understanding the city and just having that dog eat dog mentality, right? I think the Eagles had a really, really strong draft class. They clearly did their research, not just with the X's and O's, but also did their research on these guys' character traits and how they fit into the culture and to the city.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree. And yeah, I think personality-wise, he is absolutely Brandon Graham. I think play-wise, he does remind me. I think all the comparisons are right in terms of just players he reminds you of in terms of style, and it is definitely Hassan Reddick. Absolutely, 1,000% Hassan Reddick. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, okay? Have you guys heard of this eat off the floor mentality? He was wearing a shirt that said,
I saw that. Yeah, that was
okay.
Cool. Yeah.
He was wearing a shirt that said, eat off the floor. It might have been Kemsky that asked him about it and just said, hey, what's eat off the floor? And he's like, oh, that's the mentality they instilled in us in Georgia. He's like, you got to be hungry enough. You got to want it bad enough to eat off the floor.
That's right.
So okay, so you've heard this before, Gunnar.
That's right. You know what? When you're defensively, I understand what the coaches are saying, man. If you want it bad enough, you want to get your stats, you want to be respected, you got to be willing to do things you normally wouldn't do to get to where you want to go. You got to be able to get down and eat off the floor. You know what? It's not all a gourmet meal. Football is not all a gourmet meal. Sometimes you got to take it to the gutter,
Yeah, absolutely. I even take it, as far as, being grateful for your position, right? Understanding that, look, everything that comes your way is not going to come in the form that you want it. So you got to find a way to, turn limes into lemonade. You get what I'm saying? Even though that's not technically possible, but you get what I mean here. Like, you got to find a way to make do with what you have. On defense, it gets grimy, it gets dirty out there. You know what I mean? It gets muddy in the water. So you got to find a way to navigate that. You got to find a way to, maneuver through all the nonsense, even even if you feel like, damn, like it should have went my way. Damn, I almost had it this way, that way. The reality is, look, it ain't always going to come the way you like it. The fact of the matter is, you gotta make do with what you have. And as a defensive player, you're given a lot of scraps, and you got to find a way to turn those scraps to a gourmet meal, baby.
Yeah, man.
He's all about it. I mean, what we ask of all our athletes, obviously, is have that aggression, play every game like it's your last, play every down like it's your last. And I think that's the mentality that Nolan Smith's going to bring. And I don't think you just need to see him in the preseason to know that. You have to learn a little bit more about the mentality. That's why, some people don't really give a damn about what people say. When it's an insight into their mindset, I give a damn. You can learn a lot from a conversation with somebody. You can learn a lot by listening, and I learned a lot from listening to Nolan Smith in his time since being drafted by the Eagles, obviously watching him, going back, watching more tape on him from Georgia. You really do learn about not just his mindset, but, of course, his ability, which is what matters above all else. The last thing I'll say about the injury, I've never seen this before. Gunnar, he was telling, I don't know who the reporter was. It was a female reporter. But she asked him about the shoulder, and she said, "How is it now?" And he said, "Oh, it's fine. Shake my hands." And he put his hand up.
That's funny.
I said, "I'm fine. Shake my hand." And she's like, "What?" And shook his hand, and she's like, "See,
No,
I can shake your hand."
He's good. No, he's good. He has a future. He has a future in this business. He's good.
Yeah. By the way, who is it? Dank saying, "Hungry dogs run faster." Hungry dogs run 4.39s, so that's good. He also said that Nolan Smith is the perfect example of a hungry dog running faster. And there was one more comment I wanted to get in here. Kevin Savard, Farzi, maybe Harden should spend some time with Nolan Smith. All right, yeah, maybe that should happen. One other thing happened last night before we get into our stock up and stock down. Nakobe Dean did address the media after the game as well and talked about how valuable it was to have that experience of him communicating with Sean Desai on the sideline. He ended up playing a little bit more, Gunnar, than we originally anticipated. Came up with the big play. I had asked, make one play. Nakobe Dean, show me something. Go out there and make one play that I could dine on between now and the start of the season. He did that with the forced fumble. Obviously, got the penalty called on him as well. But how important for him not only to get more than 10 snaps out there on the football field, but get that communication with his defensive coordinator and also force that fumble at the goal line.
He got more snaps, obviously, because Cleveland extended that drive for so long, that first drive. But that was a great move by him. He dipped up under the would-be blocker, shot the gap, and stripped the ball. And that's what we expect to see from Nakobe Dean. He made up for a gaffe. He got a unnecessary roughness penalty the previous play, shook it off real quick, focused on what he had to do. Let's stop them, and made the play that turned the ball over to the Eagles, because that touchdown could have been a deciding factor in the outcome of that game. Not that I care about who wins or loses the preseason game, but those are the kind of plays you're going to have to make in crucial situations when money's on the line. And I liked that he showcased that. Like you said, we saw one play from Jalen Carter last week. We saw one play from Nakobe Dean this week, and you build on that. Those are the things that you build on. If Nakobe Dean's name had not been mentioned all night, we'd have been sitting here talking about, where was Nakobe Dean last night? He didn't do anything. But he made that one play to give you a small sample of what could be in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, Gunnar, you brought up a good point. The fact that he did have a penalty prior to that, and then he redeemed himself with the forced fumble. So that tells me right then and there he has a short-term memory, and that's the kind of thing you need to have on defense, right? Playing linebacker, playing corner, so on and so forth, playing any position really in the NFL, you got to have a short memory. Like we were just talking about with Nolan Smith, everything's not going to go your way right away. Everything's not going to be perfectly, suited to your circumstance. So you got to find a way to make do with what you have. And he managed to bounce away and exercise that short-term memory. Okay, I got the penalty, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come back, shoot this gap, and force this fumble. Now, the only thing I will say is, with the maneuvering of shooting the gap, I did like what I saw from him in terms of, getting from point A to point B. It did kind of look like an arm tackle a little bit. I kind of don't want to see that, but he did punch the ball out in the process. So I got to give credit where credit is due. He did impact the game. He did force a fumble and give the offense another possession, even though it did lead to a safety. But that's not on him. He did his job. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Still want to see more, but this is a step in the right direction, and I'm excited.
One thing he did say about the penalty, he thought he hit his own player. When he was asked after the Gunner, seeing your face. All right, so he said after the game, they said, well, what did you think about the penalty? And he's like, I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand it. I didn't got to see the film on it. I just don't get it. I thought I hit my own guy. I thought I was okay. And they're like, I forget who it was. It might have been Dave Zangaro. It was like, you got him pretty good. And he's like, oh, really? Like he had no idea. So he hadn't seen the play. I guess he didn't look up. I don't know if they played it on Fanavision or Jumbotron, whatever, in the stadium. I don't know. But he still had yet to see the play. He wasn't sure. He thought he hit his own guy, not the quarterback. Now, Gunner, you and I talked about it last night. Let's get this out of the way. It was a quarterback going into a slide. It was a penalty. It was a hit on a quarterback. It was unnecessary roughness. It was the right call. Not arguing for the sake of Nakobe Dean, arguing for the sake of defensive players everywhere, Gunner. This is one of the more impossible things that the NFL is asking players to do, especially defensive players, especially in a near goal line situation, deep in the red zone where your hesitation could lead to a touchdown or it could lead to a play being made. And this is an example of that. Quarterback goes into a slide a little bit late, tries to get an extra yard or two, and Nakobe Dean comes across and he didn't necessarily throw a shoulder into the head, but he had his arms out, still made contact, and it was a penalty. It was the right call. All I'm saying is it's a very difficult play for a defensive player to all of a sudden go, goal line's there, players here, up, I better hold up now in case he slides. It's a difficult thing for a defensive player.
And this is the one thing that frustrates defensive players the most, and we've seen plays like that last night have caused defenses to lose momentum in big moments, to thwart big offensive drives. They've got to do, by the letter of the law, it was a penalty. But the letter of the law is flawed in terms of what the penalty should be. When a defender is coming full bore and he's already committed his body to strike a certain zone, and the quarterback, as we talked about, he slid late. He waited until he got right in the middle of coverage and slid late. Okay? And again, and then Kobe Dean thinking he's going to catch him in the midsection, caught him in the helmet. It's got to be – that's got to be a play referees have to look at over. And if it extends the game a few minutes to get the right call, by all means, it could cost a playoff game. It could cost a Super Bowl in a situation like that. That ruling has been so vague for so long, and it drives defensive players nuts. I understand you're trying to protect offensive players, but defensive players are saying, what about protecting us? You can't expect somebody to alter their strike zone in mid-strike without trying to hurt themselves. Twisting out of the way at the last minute could be a shoulder injury, a hip injury, a knee or ankle injury. They've got to redefine what is and what isn't. Now, he took a shot to the head, yes, but it was because he slid late. Nakobe Dean did not change the momentum in which he was about to strike the quarterback. The quarterback made a move at the last second that put his head in the line of that hit. And this happens all the time now. And defensive players are going nuts because they're the ones being penalized for something that has not been looked at. They keep revamping rules across the board in the NFL, but yet they've come up with this particular rule. They've determined emphatically what is and what isn't a strike zone, but there's no variation to it. And every situation is a different situation. Now, there are some players that are just still headhunters, even in today's game, trying to make a big hit. But for a guy who is trying to be technically sound, he's being penalized for the wrong thing, plain and simple.
It sucks for the defensive players because they are in a tough position, right? You're asking them to play balls to the wall, but at the same time, you're asking them to play timid, like we talked about earlier, right? It's a really unfortunate situation that they're in. It is unfair. I do think it does need to be looked at a little bit more closely, and I do think everything needs to be looked at a case-by-case basis and not just this overarching rule. But I will say this, though, right? No one cares about the roughing the quarterback unless it's their quarterback and vice versa. And this is what I mean by that, right? Obviously, Nakobe Dean hitting that quarterback late, so to speak, it was a penalty against the defense, right? Everyone hates the rule then. But when it's their quarterback on the opposite end of it,
yep,
you got to call that, man. That was late. You got to call that. So it's always fascinating, from the fan perspective, how we digest, those two different situations. It always intrigues me how we're able to compartmentalize rules and how we want them to work in our favor, but when they actually go against us, all of a sudden the rule doesn't make too much sense. And again, I say all that to say, defensive players are in a very sticky situation, and that's why a lot of guys don't like playing defense. You know what I'm saying? Playing defense is a thankless job in the NFL. But I also think, as consumers of the product, we got to be real with ourselves. Like, I'm going to always keep it real. I believe in keeping it real with myself more than anything. I like to always check my own biases. I like to understand why I think the way I think. I like to understand why I feel the way I feel about something one way and why I may feel differently another way, depending on how it affects me. And when it comes to the roughing the quarterback situation, if Nakobe Dean is my guy, so if Nakobe Dean gets caught up in that call, and I'm like, damn, that sucks, man. Now you just gave up 10, 15 plus yards, and that sucks, man. That rule sucks. But let that have been Jalen Hurts, and they hit a guy late, or it's kind of ticky-tack. I want that call. So it's always funny how we like to play around with the rules in our mind based off who we like. It's always a fun talking point for me.
I would say you can say the same thing about the pass interference rule. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the most inconsistent rules. These guys are hand-to-hand combat. How many times have you seen a defender draped over a potential pass catcher? It's not called. In the next game you watch, if he breathes on the pass catcher too close, it's called. There's no consistency there either. When you look at the deep balls, why do you think a lot of quarterbacks throw up the deep ball? Because that's a play in the playbook now, because more than 50% of the time, they're going to get that call. When they go deep, a lot of times, the receiver will slow down, and the defender's looking for the ball, runs into the receiver, pass interference. Mm-hmm. It's a design play now in playbooks. They have to refine that rule as well. If a receiver's running full bore and the defender gets him before the ball, that's one thing. But if a receiver's and I understand he's coming back to get the ball. In that case, if a defender's head is turned around, he's looking for the ball, he runs into the receiver who slows down and try to get the ball, that should be a 50-50 ball. That should not be a pass interference call. But 95% of the time, in that case, it's a pass interference call. And that's not right. It's not right.
I would like to see, it's an interesting point. I would like to see the percentage of gain, like a percentage of positive of the way it affects the offense. Like, if you throw that up, okay, what's the percentage of times that you catch it and you get the ball? It's a completion. What's the percentage of time added to the amount of times it's called a defensive pass interference? What percentage comes out with it being a gain for the offense versus what it is as a loss for the an interception for the defense, or just an incompletion? I'd love to see the percentage split as far as that ruling goes with pass interference. But as far as this rule goes, to go back to Tone, what you were saying, I think Gunnar and I are on the same page. Generally speaking, this is a bad rule because it does not give, especially in this particular instance where Thompson Robinson is running from the 7-yard line.
Right.
So you're talking about, I got to make a decision within 7 yards to whether or not I just allow him to trot into the end zone or whether I try to make a play. He had a line to make a play. It just so happened in that line, Thompson Robinson started to go into the slide, and that's where the penalty occurred. So it's like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's one of those situations. Yeah, the 7-yard line is the biggest problem.
Yeah, I think what these refs need to kind of add into the rules is if you're a quarterback and you slide way too late, like, it's one thing if you slide and the guy's like a yard or two away, like 2 yards away, okay, you slid. But if you slide and that guy is a yard or less away, then you got to eat that hit. I'm sorry, like that needs to be added in at the very least. If quarterbacks, you want to be protected. Quarterbacks, you want to slide so you don't get hit. You better make sure you slide in time, because if you slide a yard too late, I'm not calling it, because now these defensive guys, we're putting them in danger, right? It doesn't make any sense. But again, letter of the law, they're going to call the game how they want to call the game. But if it was up to me, I would have a threshold. I would say, look, you better make sure you're 3 yards or more away, because if you're not, I'm letting that defensive guy take your head off.
Yeah, I'm with you there. There's one more thing I was going to say on that. For another day. All right, let's go through. Okay. When we come back, We got some stock up, stock down. Thumbs up, thumbs down for some Eagles players that were either on the bubble or greatly looking to help their cause in either making the team or making it as a starter on this squad. We'll get into all that and more when we return. Plus, Gunnar, I think you got some birthdays for us as well. So we'll get to all that and more when Sports Day continues.